Okay, so now we're finally ready to start importing data into Einstein Discovery. And so to remind you, we're going to go back to that trailhead trail by clicking the question mark and then clicking on Einstein Discovery Basics. And this is assuming you've signed up for your trailhead account, you've logged in, you've completed the first unit. And so now clicking on the second link for importing data into Einstein Discovery, the thing that I want you to get to and become familiar with as we scroll down here is the link for the data download, and the file is called apdist.csv, and I'm going to click the download the CSV file, and that will open up a new window here, and here's the download file as it's displayed. And so the first column of the CSV, it has these different column headers for product, region, vertical, close date, distributor, discount level, and margin. Then each row represents a record. If you're not familiar with comma separated value files, then this might look like gibberish, but basically you could open this as well in Microsoft Excel and view the data there. But the main thing is you need to save this file somewhere locally to your machine. And so I'm going to close this and I'm going to right click this and select download linked file. And so now that goes to my downloads folder. So here's what this looks like in Excel, and this is a little more formatted better. Each comma brings things into a new cell. And so we've got our apdistribution.csv file, which I've downloaded locally. The main thing is you've just got to have this saved somewhere on your computer. So I'm going to go back to Einstein Discovery, and now I'm finally ready to import the CSV file that I just downloaded to my downloads folder. So I'm going to click on the CSV icon. All right, so you select the file, and then it starts to work on and examine the data. And so once the file has been imported, it'll show up in your datasets tab. Now if I were to go over to stories, I've not created any stories yet, so we'll get into stories later on in this course, but I just wanted to show you, you can click around and your dataset has been imported into Einstein Discovery. And it's saying as well that there's data improvements that are detected and you can review the changes. And so clicking the down arrow here, you can edit the data set, you can share the data set, or even delete the data set if you wanted to remove it. Other things from the user interface standpoint is you can click on these different icons to see different layouts of this list and toggle back and forth. For example, you can click here to refresh. Now, as you have a lot more data sets, you can search them here. You could literally do hundreds of these. But the main thing and the power of this is that we've already imported this data, and we can also then edit the data set if we needed to make any changes, and that pulls up the data set inside of Einstein Discovery. And we can see that Einstein found the following ways to improve the quality of your data set. Please choose the improvements you would like to apply. And it has some of the stats around your data set, that there's 7 columns, there's 32,213 rows. I believe that Salesforce has placed limits on Einstein Discovery as far as for this free account. And I believe the column width of your data set cannot exceed between 12 to 16 columns. And then also you need to have at least 10,000 rows of data. It kind of doesn't make sense to try to have Einstein analyze a count of rows of only like 10 or 20 rows in a data set. There's not enough data there to analyze effectively. And so there's limits on both the number of columns and the number of rows, and it's somewhere between 12 to 16 columns, and you need to have at least 10,000 rows, I believe. There's nothing official that I found on that. It's just from playing around with Einstein Discovery and getting familiar with it and testing it out. And so some of the issue types for dataset improvements that they show here is that the product column, the following values occurred very rarely on the column are ball bearings. And then there's also an issue with discount level. The following values occurred very rarely on the column, which is null. And so you can actually select either do nothing or delete these rows or find and replace. And if I remember correctly, I believe that they take you through doing this in the trailhead trail. So I'm going to select find and replace, then go over here and look real quickly at what they're telling you to do with this particular file so that you can kind of follow along and get a glimpse of what you'll be doing it on your own end when you complete this particular module of the trail. And so it's saying that we do need to choose find and replace from the menu in the action column and click add, and then enter bearings in the find field and bearings in the replace field. So what that means is we're going to click add after we selected find and replace, and then we are going to type in And this is a display issue here a little bit. That may just be because I've got my own screen really zoomed in, but it is a little wonky with the display. But it does show how this should look like. So we got bearings and bearings, and then click apply in the upper right. Now this is a usability thing that I feel like Salesforce needs to improve is, you want to click delete, but really we need to click apply in the upper right. This took me a little bit to realize, like, oh, okay, so click apply. And so now it's importing the data and checking quality. And you see the little guy hopping through the woods. And we get to our AP dist data set with more of the data around here and more details around the different field names and the different types. Now, if we go back over to this trail, we can look at the field name margin. If type is set to text, click the down arrow and change it to number. If it's already set to number, you're good to go. So let's look at margin. It is set to number, so we're going to leave that alone. But if for whatever reason, if yours is set to text, be sure and change it back to number. And then any other changes, let's click apply. And I haven't made any other changes, so we're just going to leave it at that. And so that completes this particular trail here. And so I want you to go through this process in your own Trailhead account and then log into Trailhead and complete these steps and get these points. So we've now walked through the process of importing a CSV file. In the next lecture, I'm going to show you next how to import data from Salesforce. So we will go through the process of creating a connection and importing data through Salesforce. So stay tuned.